and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsXWorld. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump steps back from threats to use tariffs or force over Greenland, saying a deal with Denmark is possible. NATO chief Mark Rutte says Greenland's sovereignty is not discussed, with Trump focusing instead on Arctic security. Denmark's foreign minister says US President Donald Trump has sent positive signals by ruling out military action over Greenland. Trump also says he has a framework deal and drops tariff threats after talks with NATO chief Mark Rutte. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he will meet US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to discuss the war in Ukraine and frozen Russian assets. US President Donald Trump is also set to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Davos. 7 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Egypt, say they will join US President Donald Trump's Board of Peace alongside Israel. Trump says Russia's Vladimir Putin has also accepted, but Moscow says it is still reviewing the invitation. Syria's government accuses the Kurdish-led SDF of attacks that killed 11 soldiers, but the group disputes the claims and blames at least one blast on Syrian troops. The incidents risk derailing a 4-day ceasefire as Damascus pushes for the SDF to integrate into the state. The Trump administration starts immigration enforcement raids in a Maine called Operation Catch of the Day, the Homeland Security Department confirms. A spokesperson suggests targeted Maine response to a political feud with Democratic Governor Janet Mills over sanctuary policing. Nigerian forces rescued 62 hostages from the Manhei forest, a hideout linked to bandit leader Kachala Alti, as the UN says insurgency by Boko Haram and ISWAP has killed about 35,000 people. Meanwhile, in a separate operation, 5 soldiers and a police officer were killed in a terrorist ambush. According to Norwegian Development Minister Asmund Okrust, Jordan and Norway are deepening a strategic partnership that now goes beyond aid to include political alignment, economic cooperation, support for multilateralism, and coordinated positions on Palestine, international law, and UN reform. Alright, viewers, let's start with news now on the Board of Peace. US President Donald Trump is set to formally announce the first charter of his Board of Peace, and that's breaking news that we are bringing you. Board of Peace is a body for resolving international conflicts with a $1 billion price tag for permanent membership, as per Trump. The board, which Trump will launch in what has been billed as a signing ceremony in Davos, Switzerland, was originally conceived to oversee the rebuilding or the reconstruction of Gaza. But a draft of the charter does not appear to limit its role to the Palestinian territory. All right, joining me now in this discussion are Peter Baum, who's editor of the Weekly Blitz. He joins us from London. And I also have Yossi Kapurwasser, Israeli intelligence and security expert from Tel Aviv. I'd like to start my first question with Peter Baum. Peter, firstly, talk to us about your thoughts on the contentions that are being raised on Trump's Board of Peace. Some call it mini UN. Some have raised the concern of a $1 billion fee for permanent membership or membership beyond 3 years, and the very fact that Trump himself may not be in office as US president 3 years later.
Well, let's be clear about a couple of things. First of all, the initiative, the Board of Peace, started by Trump, excuse me, is the phase 2 after the supposed ceasefire in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, what the world knows is that where we were from October the 7th up until 2 years ago is a far cry from where we are now in terms of the number of rockets being fired, the number of hostilities, the number of deaths, the so-called famine, etc., etc., etc. So whatever you think of Donald Trump, he is the one person on the planet that has at least tried to achieve something.
Right.
And all we see in the Western media, who have this hatred towards Trump, the globalized left-wing media, is that Trump can do no right. He is pilloried, he is mocked, he is demonized by all the so-called globalists in the world. But at least he's trying to do something. Now, whether this Board of Peace achieves its objectives is yet to be seen. But the mere fact that this one man and his administration are trying to put into place some kind of formula, some kind of process that will ultimately end the hostilities between the Palestinians and the Israelis, I think should be applauded. And yet, where I come from, the United Kingdom, the media, the focus is purely on mocking him, and there is almost a willingness, an eagerness that they want to see this Board of Peace fail. The fact that he's doing something, and the fact that Saudi, Turkey, probably to Israel's distrust and dislike, and Egypt have signed up, I think should be applauded. And I think it's just exposes the political elite and the global media as to what they are. They just want to see Trump fail. They just want to mock him. They just want to demonize him. We don't know how many more countries are going to sign up. I understand that Vietnam has signed up. I think Azerbaijan has signed up. And I'm sure in the days and weeks ahead, other countries have signed up. I noticed that my own government, the UK government, are saying, hey, we're not ready for it yet. Our UK government is an irrelevance.
Yeah.
On the world stage, they are nowhere near the kind of country that we were a decade ago or even 2 decades ago. So whatever the Keir Starmer's government does, really, by the world at large, should be ignored. They are an irrelevance in this situation. We'll see whether other European countries signed up. I noticed that Hungary has signed up.
Yeah.
That's not unexpected because they are very pro-Trump.
Right.
So let's see what happens in the days.
Peter, how do you respond to the fact that UK has held off signing the Board of Peace, citing Putin? He says because Putin is the member, UK has held off signing. So how do you view the peace for Gaza being differentiated from peace over the Russia-Ukraine war?
I think this just exposes the UK's hypocrisy in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Don't forget, whilst calling politically for support for Ukraine, our own government were buying gas from Russia. So on the one hand, they're supporting the oppressor and supposedly supporting the oppressed. So please, the UK has lost all credibility on the world stage. This government in particular doesn't know what it's doing. So that's how I respond to it. It's a hopeless government, both supporting Ukraine during the war politically and by supporting Russia by buying energy from them. So really, they've lost credibility on the world stage. I think Trump realizes that.
All right, sure. Peter, thanks very much for joining us in this discussion with your opinion. Meanwhile, viewers, there's some breaking news details coming in. Let's spell those out for you. Britain says it will not sign up for now to US President's proposed Board of Peace. Foreign Secretary Cooper says the UK has been invited but will not be a signatory at Trump's ceremony in Davos. That, by the way, is being held as of now. Trump is taking part in Board of Peace Charter announcement. That is the breaking news that we are bringing you, viewers. Meanwhile, Cooper from UK told the media the proposal raises wider legal and political concerns. She pointed to fears over Russian President Vladimir Putin's possible involvement, saying there is no sign of commitment to peace in Ukraine. The board was initially pitched as a plan to help end the Gaza war and rebuild the territory. But the draft charter goes further, with critics warning it could replace some functions of the United Nations. Several countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Israel, say they will join. President Trump claims Vladimir Putin has accepted an invitation, though Moscow says it is still reviewing the offer. Cooper said the UK backs Trump's Gaza peace plan, but will continue discussions with allies before committing. All right, I would now like to go across to Yossi Kapurwasser, Israeli intelligence and security expert, joining us from Tel Aviv. Mr. Kapurwasser, thank you very much for staying on with us. Firstly, how do you react to the developments coming in from UK over Putin's possible joining of the Board of Peace?
Well, I don't think that originally the idea of the Board of Peace was what it became now. But it's a new development that attracts the attention of every leader around the globe, because there is a reason to believe that what Trump has in mind is to change the world order a little bit. He's totally confused, frustrated with the world order that prevails right now, with the situation where all kinds of members of the United Nations have more impact on how things develop than the United States itself. So here he comes with a new body that would enable the United States, together with organizations and the states that want to see development toward peace, run the business. And that's what he has in mind. And I think this is going to be something different than what was envisaged in the beginning, where it was supposed to just deal with the situation in Gaza. The fact is that the situation in Gaza is still very complicated and fragile, because the ceasefire holds, but it's vulnerable.
All right, sure. Mr. Kapurwasser, do continue to stay on with us. I'd like to put my next question to Peter Baum. Peter, why do you think the fact that Trump has chosen the World Economic Forum, which he's visited for the first time in 6 years, as the opportune moment for the Board of Peace signing ceremony? All right, I'm told we have some network connection issues with Peter, but Mr. Kapurwasser, I'd like you to answer that question, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just asking, how do you make the fact that Trump has chosen the World Economic Forum to hold the signing ceremony for the Gaza Board of Peace, especially given the fact that it's the first time in 6 years he's visiting Davos for the forum?
Well, I would not put too much importance to the venue that he chose in order to hold this ceremony. It's less important. The ceremony is important by itself. The creation of the Board of Peace is important by itself. The background of the Davos World Forum, World Economic Forum, is less important in this respect. It's an opportunity where he has many heads of states appearing in the same location, so this is an opportunity for him to hold this ceremony.
All right, sure, Mr. Kapurwasser. In fact, there are some more developments that are coming in. China's foreign ministry has dismissed as accusations of its Arctic ambitions as groundless, after NATO said negotiations over Greenland with the US were aimed at preventing Russia and China from getting a foothold in the Arctic region. This comes as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that he and US President Donald Trump had discussed how the transatlantic alliance should best defend the Arctic against Russia and China. Trump has repeatedly said he wanted to acquire Greenland, citing national security, though he has now ruled out using force and has suggested the deal was in sight to end the dispute over the Danish overseas territory.
中方一贯主张按照联合国宪章宗旨和原则处理国与国之间的关系。所谓的中国威胁毫无根据。中方反对无中生有，拿中国作为谋取私利的借口的做法。
All right, viewers. China calling out the Arctic ambition claims of Donald Trump as completely groundless. Foreign Ministry of China has completely dismissed these accusations after NATO said negotiations over Greenland with the US were aimed at preventing Russia and China from getting a foothold in the Arctic region. Remember, viewers, this is what Trump had cited as one of the reasons for his so-called need to acquire the autonomous territory of Greenland that's under Denmark as of now. And this, of course, is coming as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that he and Trump had discussed how the transatlantic alliance should best defend the Arctic against Russia and China. Trump, let's remind you viewers, has repeatedly said he wanted to acquire Greenland, citing national security. And in fact, at the World Economic Forum address at Davos yesterday, he said the US needs Greenland not just for its national security, but also for the security of the entire world. Though he has now ruled out using force and has suggested a deal was in sight to end the dispute over Greenland. So fresh details are coming in as far as Greenland is concerned. As of now, what's clear is that Trump has said that he will not use force over Greenland, but what is inside is a possible deal with NATO for Trump to have his control over the Arctic territory. Alright viewers, fresh details emerging. Let's take you through those one by one. As far as China is concerned, China of course has clearly ruled out Trump's claims and also the claims of the NATO chief Mark Rutte. Rutte has said meanwhile specific negotiations on Greenland will continue between US, Denmark and Greenland. He said the Arctic effort will not drain resources in support for Ukraine. That's a very important statement that's coming out to us from the NATO chief, who says that Arctic effort will not drain resources in support for Ukraine. He's also said that critical minerals exploitation was not discussed in his talks with Trump, and that he is sure non-Arctic NATO allies will want to contribute. It is now up to NATO commanders to work through details of extra security requirement. NATO's Rutte says first results of increased Arctic security will be visible in 2026. A timeline there, viewers, inside that he's been presented by NATO chief Mark Rutte. He says first results of Arctic security will be visible next year in 2026. And these updates, let's remind you, are coming from Davos. Rutte says the framework deal with Trump will mean NATO allies will have to step up on Arctic security. And moving on, viewers, let's also tell you what Russian President Vladimir Putin is doing. He's in fact set to meet US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in Moscow today to discuss a potential peace plan for Ukraine. This meeting follows President Trump's statement that a deal to end the war is reasonably close. Trump has been pushing for a resolution, but a final deal has yet to materialize. Putin will continue the dialogue on the Ukrainian conflict and the possibility of using frozen Russian assets as part of the negotiations. Despite ongoing talks, European powers remain concerned about the peace process and whether a US brokered deal will hold long term. Trump expressed confidence in reaching a deal, but warned that failure would be stupid, pointing to both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin as key figures in the negotiation process. All right, viewers, details now on the peace over Ukraine. Putin set to meet US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in Moscow, as a US delegation will be heading to Moscow to discuss a potential peace plan for Ukraine. Now, joining me in this discussion is all right, viewers, I'm told our guest has not been able to join us, but for now, that's all the time that we have in this discussion and this episode of the World Report. Thanks for staying tuned to NewsXWorld.